most of our stress does not come from having too much to do. It comes from not finishing what we have begun.
ADHD Rewired, episode number 25. This is the show designed to help those of us who have really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. Whether you have ADHD and you want to learn more about it, or you are looking for ways to organize your time, your things, or the many details of life so you can get more done, this show is for you. My name is Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, coach, and consultant, and yes, I have ADHD. We know that starting can be the hardest part, so let's get started with another episode from the ADA conference with today's guest, Alan Brown. ADHD Rewired listeners, please note that this episode contains some adult language and content. So if you are listening with your kids, put on headphones. You guys are in store for a really good episode today. This is a great episode where we talk just about a ton of different productivity type tips, and Alan shares with us, as do many of the guests on ADHD Rewired, shares with us his journey, and it wasn't all pretty. And he'll talk about this, how he was not diagnosed until he was 36 years old. He struggled with alcohol and drug addiction. It took him 10 years to get a 4-year degree. And he shares with us a lot about that and kind of what helped him shift his life in a direction towards the positive. So you'll want to stick around and listen to the whole episode. He shares with us specific brain hacks that he uses. We talk about how to prioritize things and look at things in the realm of important versus urgent, and how he'll say certain things to himself to help him stay on track with what he's supposed to be doing. And we talk about entrepreneurship and how the challenge of working on the right thing can often be a challenge for entrepreneurs. So this is an episode that is jam-packed of very practical tips. This isn't, as he'll say later in the episode, this is not just a feel-good episode because he thinks that we should all get off the feel-good BS and really just get to work. So this is an episode that is really great value for this episode. I would encourage you to listen until the very end because the great content is delivered all the way through. I don't think there's any fluff in this entire episode. So we're going to move on. We're going to listen to the episode. But before we do, I was just wondering if you guys have checked out the free audiobook that you can get by going to audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. They're giving us a free download and a 30-day free trial. Go check it out. audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. It is the final day of the ADA conference, and I am sitting here with Alan Brown. You may or may not know Alan Brown. He is an entrepreneur, an executive. He is an ADHD coach, the creator of ADHD Crusher. He's a co-author of 365 plus 1 ways to succeed with ADHD. Am I getting that right?
Yes.
And he was not diagnosed until adulthood.
That's right.
Thanks for joining me, Alan.
Well, thanks for having me here. Pleasure to be on the podcast, and I love your show.
Well, thank you.
And, I was diagnosed at 36 after some troubled times being an undiagnosed adult. Some of the classic bad stuff like alcohol abuse, self-medication with drugs. I was a drug addict for a while and finally snapped out of that enough to get a job in the advertising business at the age of 29 after taking 10 years to get my 4-year degree.
One of the things that we like to try to do on this show is not just, dance around that brick wall moment. What was it that snapped you out of the addiction?
The addiction was I was kind of shuttling between Jersey City and Harlem to buy my drugs, and my mother was at Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan, right between Harlem and Jersey City, and she was dying of cancer. And in her last dying months, I am stopping at the hospital to visit my mother on my way to buy drugs. And I would say to my mother, I can't stay that long because I have to go somewhere. And I would get home from these trips and just look at myself in the mirror and say, is this really who you are? And one day I just picked up the phone and just called 411 and said, just tell me where to go.
Wow.
And they told me about an NAAA meeting. I went to that, and I tearfully told my story in that meeting, and that was the beginning of the end of my drug addiction.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful story. It's giving me goosebumps.
Well, and fortunately, I reached a bottom that didn't involve getting into jail or hurting someone physically, which could easily have happened. I was doing some pretty crazy stuff. So, in fact, here at ADA, one of the presentations I gave on Friday was about the undiagnosed 85%. 85 to 90% of adults with ADHD out there don't even know they have it.
And you gave a TED Talks on that, didn't you?
I also did a TED Talk. If you search TEDx San Diego and my name, Alan Brown, you will find it. And it's the presentation I gave on Friday was an expansion of that TED Talk. And, the issue is you have so many people that are out behaving like I was, but even, less severely, just walking around with a bag of weed, or their car's uninsured or something like that, or doing something stupid with some peers, and they end up in the jail system, the justice system, and they can't, and then they screw everything up from there on, and then they end up getting out and then getting another drug conviction or something, and then they end up in the prison system, and their life is shot, all because of some stupid decisions that were in part driven by having ADHD and not having your SHIT together.
You're the second person this weekend that did that, has spelled out SHIT.
Well, I don't know what your censorship code is, Eric.
I'm always on the fence with it.
Well, it was interesting to see, to hear you and I came from the keynote speech by Ned Hollowell, who dropped a really beautiful F-bomb in that speech. It was perfect. I won't repeat it, but I will tweet it later on. But it was you and I were looking at each other like, that was so perfect.
Well, I tweeted a few times during the conference. The internet connection for me was a problem, but the one thing that I did tweet was from Thomas Brown, who said that the ADHD mind is ADHD is like erectile dysfunction of the mind.
Yes, I heard about that. I'm sorry I missed that presentation. That's so perfect. That is so tweetable.
Okay, so, and I think Ned just mentioned the word grit. So I like to talk about kind of the notion of when you have ADHD, and sometimes we just have to work twice as hard and we're only getting half as much out of it. It takes a lot of determination and perseverance through struggle, through failures, and getting back up from that failure. So talk to us a little bit about your grit and some of the other things that have allowed you to kind of fail forward, and share with us kind of some of the things that you're still working on. Because, being successful when you have ADHD, as you know, means you are managing it every single day.
Absolutely true. And grit is a great word. I've always been a hard worker. And as I mentioned, once I turned that corner on the drugs, I got a job in the advertising business. And for the first 6 years of that career, before I was diagnosed, I'm busting my butt and working 75, 80 hours a week and not getting nearly the same return as the people around me. Of course, they're also 7 years younger than me because I started my career when I was 29. But that really took a lot of...
Can I ask you, how old are you?
I'm 53.
Get out.
Well, the folks out there can't see me.
I know.
I only look 52.
I sometimes do that, on this. I'm like, wow, this is going to make great audio. I'll post the picture. Send me the picture that you just took before we hit record.
I will.
And then when I release this, I'll attach that picture to it so people can see.
Fair enough.
Because you look like you're in your lower 30s.
Well,
so.
Thank you so much. But, back to the grit thing. I mean, really, it took a lot of kind of, every day you're wondering, why is this happening to me? Why am I not making progress? But you still have to get up, you still have to get to work, and you still have to do it. And so what I actually ended up doing was unwittingly developing some strategies to help cope with my ADHD. And then, of course, when I got diagnosed at 36, boom, the light went off, and I was able to really polish those strategies. Oh, now I know why I do this. Now I know why I developed this strategy. And then I developed some new ones, and I was able to take a career that was on a very average what's the word, slope, and then just turn it straight up. And in 3 years from diagnosis, I went from account executive to vice president management director at an employee of the year of the largest office of the biggest ad agency in the country at the time.
Wow.
But back to your question about the things that we still deal with every day, because even if you have achieved some level of success or management of your ADHD, every day I still get up and I have to really work hard to make sure I'm working on the right stuff, to make sure I'm not getting pulled off tasks.
And how do you do that? Really bring us there.
I have a trick that I've been teaching for years. It's kind of one of the favorite things that gets presented here. In fact, another coach, Rudy Rodriguez, who presented here, he actually presented the same thing in his. He presented some of our Crusher video, which I was delighted about, because I was actually in his presentation when he puts up my video in his presentation. I thought it was so cool. But Rudy's a big fan of ours, and we're a fan of his too. But here's the trick. You have sat down to do something that you know you need to get done. It's the thing that you say, I'm going to do this now. And we ADDers we don't prioritize based on what is most important like normal people do. We prioritize based on what is most interesting at the moment. Right?
And I often say that we prioritize based on proximity. Whatever's closest to us is going to get our attention.
Great. Well said. And so, we, out of the corner of our eye, we see that open web browser window that has our Facebook page or our email, and we go, let me just go check that real quick.
Just for a minute.
Just a second. Or then somebody sends you a video. Oh, check out this video. And you go, hey, you know what? That'd be a lot more fun than doing this work that I had sat down to do. And so we allow all these things to come in, and then 2 hours later, we kick ourselves because nothing has gotten done. And
then we take a break.
Then we take a break because we've been working so hard doing this other stuff. And this is why we have all the stickies all over the place of things we were supposed to do. And there's a great quote that I use in the presentation. Most of our stress does not come from having too much to do. It comes from not finishing what we have begun.
Love it. Love it.
And so you think about all the stickies that are around, all your to-do lists, and how the ADDer is so frustrated by this. But if you were able to finish the things you begin more often, you would find that you would start crumbling up more and more of those stickies. So let me tell you a little bit more about this, what I call a brain hack. So if next time you sat down to write that complicated email or to create a presentation or whatever that is that you know is tough and you need to sit down and do it and you're likely to be dragged off of it, what you do is you forcefully label it in your mind. I'm labeling this thing, this is what I'm doing now. And I put a big blue and white sign on it. It says what I'm doing now. And I put it on that thing mentally. So that now when
you say mentally, so are you just keeping it in mind or are you writing it out?
I am imagining in my mind, I'm looking at, let's say it's an email that I need to work on, a complicated email to a business colleague or just getting some important meeting as related to it or whatever. I will look at that email and I will mentally imagine my sign that says, my label that says what I'm doing now being put right on that. So there's like a big blinking billboard that says, this is what I'm doing now. Now, by doing that, I have just helped to close the window, the peripheral window, to that Facebook page, to that email, to that text from a friend that's going to come in and say, hey, how you doing, buddy? Which is totally fine. But it's not what I'm doing now. That's frankly, compared to what I'm doing now, it's BS that I'm not doing now, right? It's BS and I'm not doing it now. So let's go back to what I'm doing now. Now, there are things...
One of the things that I do with that is when I'm sitting at my computer, that I'll actually put a sticky note on the kind of the bottom part of the screen that just has like usually one or two words, and that's telling me what am I actually working on.
Beautiful.
Because then I'll notice immediately if I'm not working on that.
That's brilliant. And I actually was just working with a client yesterday, and we talked about the importance of every once in a while asking yourself, what is it that I'm doing now?
Yes.
What am I working on? Why am I doing what I'm doing?
I want to be doing?
Right. Now, there are going to be those interruptions that are kind of important, right? They're not urgent. The house is not burning down, but they're things that, if I forget to do this, I'm going to get burned. So what happens is we get dragged off the thing we're doing now and we go do that other important thing. But the problem is that thing may be important, but it is not urgent.
Right.
And so what you need to do is you label that, well, that's important, but it's still not what I'm doing now.
You know, I was listening to another podcast. I think it was and I always kind of mix up this name, the it's the quick and dirty guy's guide to get things done. I'm totally botching the name, but it's like a 10-minute podcast that it has a really great kind of sarcastic tone to it, and it's just a lot of productivity tips. And he was saying, and it was this great kind of like, wow, it's a great clarification between the important and the urgent, was that the urgent is not what is due soon. It's what you need to start soon.
Interesting.
So I thought, like,
very interesting.
I thought it was a really nice perspective. That's a nice layer to I can tell you do the wheels spinning.
No, that is
too.
absolutely fantastic. Because it really does make a distinction between the house is burning down and you better put it out now versus, all right, this is important. It may even have some urgency to it. But again, if you want to get rid of all the things on your to-do list or start whittling them down, the only way you're going to do it is by sticking with the thing that you started to do, the thing that you sat down to do. So those are the 3 labels that I use. This is what I'm doing now. That is BS that I'm not doing now, and that other thing is important, but it's still not what I'm doing now. And I tell you, I love working on airplanes because I'm just very productive. So as soon as I'm at 10,000 feet, my laptop flies open, and I'm just blasting away. And invariably, the person sitting next to me will overhear me say, "That's bullshit that I'm not doing now. I got to get back to this. This is what I'm doing now. What I was doing now is."
And then you hear the person next to you, "This guy's crazy."
Yes, or they say to me, "I'm sorry, were you speaking to me?" And I say, "No, and in fact, you're BS that I'm not doing now." So no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, if you make something like that a real habit, like the sticky that you put on your laptop screen, you make little habits like this. Listen, I want to say something really important. In fact, about a conference like this, Ada, there is so much great information here. But a key is we ADDers love to absorb, kind of take in this information and think great thoughts about all these. And I'm going to buy these books and I'm going to get Alan Brown's video and da-da-da-da-da. But unless and until you actually just take one of the things that you learned, just one.
Put it into action.
And put it into action until it becomes habit. The rest of it is just feel-good BS. And we've got to get away from the feel-good stuff because you can read all the books you want, but until you start making new habits, that's when things are going to start to really feel better. And that's how if you want to talk about grit, apply some of that grit that you have to really being serious about adopting new habits. One at a
new
time.
habit, and start small. That's one of the things that I often talk about is the best way to make big progress is to take small steps, but keep on moving.
Yep.
You were talking about the importance of finishing, and as you're learning, I'm kind of a podcast geek. Like I listen to so much audio, I just love it. I'm kind of an information.
You're a geek among geeks.
I'm
when it
totally
comes to that.
a geek among geeks, and I love it. So one of my favorite podcasts is a podcast called Entrepreneur on Fire.
Oh, I know.
Okay, so you know John Lee Dumas.
Yeah,
so one
absolutely.
of the things that he says is he has this mantra called focus, and I'm hoping I'm going to remember what, which stands for finish one course until success. So it's that idea of finish. You can't just start stuff and keep going until you've achieved what you want to achieve.
Yep. Now, I want to say something on that because that is very akin to do what you're doing now and don't let yourself get pulled away. But one of the things that ADDers have some trouble with is staying focused long enough.
Right.
And we get they're disassembling the conference right before our eyes and ears here. So that's what's going on back there. But we tend to get fatigued fairly quickly, and we do need to take breaks here and there. The other thing that we do is that we beat ourselves up if we don't completely finish something, to the point where we often won't start something because, well, I'm never going to finish it. I can't finish it today anyway, so I won't even start. So John Dumas has this great thing called Focus, and I love his webinars, and his podcast. But we have to remember that it's okay also to get going on something and move it forward so that you have some success with it. And if you happen to get a little bit bogged down in it, don't beat yourself up about it. Right. You have made progress. Exactly. Keep moving forward. Stay optimistic.
The clinking of the table is making great audio, I'm sure. I keep adjusting the audio here. I'm like, you're going to be swallowing this microphone soon because I keep turning the volume down so it's not picking up the stuff and moving closer to you.
I'll stay close to it. All right.
So what, if you can share with us as far as, and I think I was asking this, but I'm not sure if you fully really answered the biggest struggle. I know you said it was kind of being intentional with what you're doing. Is there something that maybe you've been working on, but you're not making the progress that you want to be making. I know my listeners know that for me, it's getting myself to get to bed on time. For me, it's frustrating because I know what I want to do and I'm not doing it.
Yep, and you and I were just talking about that before we turned the mic on. Sleep is definitely a big thing, and I think I've made some strides in that. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I am still working to get better at is working on the right stuff. And I have notes around me that I'll have these 4 things on a big whiteboard right in front of my workspace at my home office. It says, I should be working on this, that, or that. These are broader goals. Those aren't little projects, but they're broader things. And if I'm not working on one of those 4 things, I'm probably not working on the right things. So that's definitely a challenge, and I think that's a challenge for all entrepreneurs.
Now, do you have like a weekly review, daily review, monthly? Do you do that kind of stuff?
No, I don't. But I've recently begun using a one sheet by Brendan Burchard.
Okay.
Whom you may have heard of. He's the High Performance Academy guy, and you can find him on YouTube. Brendan with an O-N rather than an A-N. Burchard, B-U-R-C-H-A-R-D, and he's got this great one sheet where you start your day by writing out the 3 projects or 4 or 5 projects that you're working on, and that could be something like write your next book, or create the next video, or sort of bigger things. But then below that, you write the people that you need to reach out to today, and then next to that, the people that you're waiting to hear from, right? And then below that, I'm probably getting too much detail, but I'll wrap it up.
This is great.
And then down at the bottom, you write, here are your your to-dos. These are the things you kind of got to get done today. And if you just spent 5 or 10 minutes every day, every morning, just doing that, and use that as your blueprint for the day, it's fantastic. And when we're done here, I will show you mine, because
awesome.
It's right. I look at it,
and I'll put a link to that on the show notes for listeners. But let me just summarize to make sure I understood it. Even though I know I can go back and listen to this, I want to try to capture this. So you start your day by writing out an overview of your bigger projects. You break it down through the people that you need to contact and the people who you're waiting to hear back from. Then you break that down into the specific actionable steps you need to take to make those projects done.
Right. Now, the 3 areas, projects, people, and priorities, might not all be totally interrelated, but it is a way for you to kind of look at your day in one simple sheet and be able to prioritize what you're going to work on. And a neat little trick, for example, that this allows is, now he says the worst thing you can do in the morning is open up your email.
Yeah.
And you've heard this elsewhere. I have been guilty of it, but I'm learning to stop doing that. Now, obviously, if you're in a customer service role, or you have a boss, a relationship in your organization where you have to be constantly looking at your email to make sure that X, Y, and Z gets done. But most people are not in that kind of thing. And what they do is they go and they open up their email in the morning, and that's how they start their day. The problem with that is that emails in your inbox are somebody else's agenda.
Yes.
And when you are when you're living through your inbox, you are living other people's agendas, and you are not living your own desires. That's a rough quote from Brendan Burchard. But what he does, for instance, that's why he makes you list the people that you need to reach out to and the people that you're waiting to hear from today. Because what he then says is, after you finish this sheet, right, and you've started, deciding what you're going to be working on first, etc., then you check your emails, and you do it by sorting by the from thing. So that you then go and you find the people, and you only respond to or read the emails that are from those people that you listed.
That's great.
Isn't that brilliant?
Are you familiar with the Gmail app Boomerang?
I've heard of it. I haven't.
So it's great for the waiting to hear from category, because what you can do is you can identify, set a time for if the person has not responded within that time, it'll kick it back to you to let you know that they have not responded.
That's neat.
And you can also sometimes it's good to slow down communication, because you ever have that person you shoot this email to, and then it took you a long time to write it, and then they shoot it respond to you immediately.
Right, and they missed each other.
Well, it's not even to miss each other. It's that, then they expect that immediate response.
Oh, right.
So sometimes what I do, if I have someone that I know tends to do that, I can set a delayed response on it.
Neat.
So I don't have to remember to send it later. I write it when it's fresh in my mind. I'm right there. But I send it later to kind of slow down the conversation a bit.
Isn't that a funny thing also that, that's one of the things that ADDers don't always do is think on their feet really quick. So when you get an email from someone that requires a response, you almost don't want to respond immediately because you don't want them to know that you're there at your email. And then if they see you respond real quickly, they might throw more questions at you. So I know exactly the feeling. Yes, and again, that would put you on their agenda and not yours. So,
okay, so
that's a key thing.
A couple more questions. Do you have a favorite piece of technology or productivity tool or app that you just love?
I'll tell you what, needless to say, my iPhone is, I couldn't live without it. It's amazing. I don't abuse it. I don't get sucked into too many things. I have the right amount of apps that help me. I know listening to you and your podcast, I'm likely to maybe learn about a new one like I just did that'll help me. But it is easy, as you know, for ADDers to get app happy, and they actually end up needing an app endectomy. You'll forgive me, and you can quote that.
But I'm punching.
But I think that the most common, most powerful app for me, or piece of technology for me, remains my Outlook or my iCal. They talk to each other because I, of course, use it to plan my day, to look at my day proportionally, right? I can see how crowded it is. But also, I do things like, you and I spoke about 3 hours ago, and we were agreed that after Hallowell's keynote, we were going to meet and talk. So when I have that conversation with you, I immediately go into my calendar on my phone and I create an alert that will pop up 15 minutes before I'm to meet with you. And so then my phone just buzzes a little bit. I go, oh, that's right, 15 minutes. This is the perfect substitute for our lack of short-term memory and working memory. And I've outsourced it to my phone, and it works fantastically.
Well, I saw that. I think you either wrote a blog post or retweeted my the thing that I wrote about the top lies people with ADHD tell themselves, with the number one being, I'll remember that. Yes,
that was really inspiring. You did an ADA webinar, and I co-hosted it, I think, with Linda Rogley.
I think that was like the first. Was that the first one that you co-hosted?
I think it was the first one that I co-hosted. And those lies we tell ourselves, with such a powerful statement that you made, that I immediately wrote a blog about the lies we tell ourselves, and that you're doing. And, of course, I quoted and credited you with that. And it was a really popular blog. People really resonated with that because it is things like, I lie to myself and say, I'll remember that. Another one is, it'll only take me a second to get ready.
Right.
Or another one is, another one really is kind of, I don't have time enough to do that, so I won't even start.
Right.
There's a million of these. You kind of nailed the 5 juicy ones, but there are also some smaller ones that we do it all the time. And
that comes from, I kind of borrow that from, I love when I blank on names, Ellis from Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy. And, he has he talks about the shoulds, the shouldy thinking, that things should be easy and people should treat me nicely. Like, these are assumptions that don't make us happy. It's better to shift by saying it would be nice if.
The word should is a very powerful one that we need to pay more attention to. Ultimately, if you really think about it, the word should is connoted with nothing but negativity. And particularly when we direct it at other people, like, they should not be wearing that dress. He should be nicer to me. That guy should get a job or whatever. It's basically saying that you're unhappy with the way the universe is, and it basically says that you don't accept the way the universe is, and you're not at peace with it. And then, of course, when you do it to yourself, I should be more thoughtful, or I shouldn't, I should be doing better at work or whatever. That's also a beating up on yourself kind of thing. So that's one of the things I teach in my Zen Brain Hacks is the word should. Is a really, really nasty thing. If we can work that out of our...
It's one of those shaming words that sneaks in so easily.
It's always there. And again, it's kind of invisible. We're so used to using it.
Do you have a favorite book or maybe something you're reading that, whether it's either on ADHD or something that kind of inspires you other than your own?
Well, I do happen to think that ADD Crusher videos are really powerful tools and are designed for the ADD mind.
And while you're on that, how can people find that online?
ADDcrusher.com. And come on, and by the way, come to the website and sign up for your free ebook called 5 Things You're Doing Every Day That Make Your ADHD Worse. And trust me, you're doing them. You're doing all of them.
You're such a good marketer.
Yeah. Now, I had pulled up this this Amazon photo of this book. You just asked me about a book. And this is a book called How to Sit by Thich Nhat Hanh. It's ThichNhatHanh. It's 3 words.
ADHD Rewired Community. Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. You can check out a collection of books by Thich Nhat Hanh, which was one of the books recommended by Alan Brown. He speaks on a number of topics related to mindfulness. You could also enjoy samples of each book before you even choose to buy it. They have a several-minute audio sample to see if you like the reader. You can even just do a search on ADHD or any topic that is interesting to you. And you can find that at audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired for your free audiobook download.
And he's a Buddhist monk, and he's actually very well known in the mindfulness circles. But I just started reading this, and his language is so Dr. Seuss simple, but
nice.
Profound. He says, like, for instance, and I'll just share one thing from it. He says, mindfulness is as simple as breathing in, because the moment you listen to your inward breath, you immediately stop time. Mm-hmm. You connect with yourself and your mind and what's around you. It's just listening to your inward breath. Mm-hmm. That is the pause. And the reason I find that so profound for ADDers is because, we just saw a little talk from David Gawork, who was presented with an award here. He's all about the pause and just breathing in.
The pause, yes.
We lack the pause. We ADDers to have that impulse control issue. And if we could pause more often to say, for instance, wait a minute, this is not what I'm doing now, right? Or what am I working on right now? Is this important? Yeah. That requires a pause.
I had a client that I was working with a while back that we were talking about this very thing. And one of the things that he did is he took a bunch of sticky notes and drew out a big pause button and put them all around his house. And it was great.
Wow. That's neat. I have another trick for that, which is because we don't have... He had to do that because we don't have an internal, pause mechanism. We don't have that thing that makes us pause internally that other people do. So we need, as your friend has done, we need to create external pauses. He did it by putting stickies up all over the place.
And I think that pause too is different from stopping, because sometimes we keep going because we know that once we stop, it's hard to get going again.
Yep.
So that pause is just that quick. Okay, I'm reflecting and go.
Again, it is just a simple being present, being aware. But a trick that I use is every time I go through an exit or an entrance, that's my cue. It's an external cue to pause. So, for instance, when I exit my truck, before I shut that door, I feel the key in my hand. I feel my phone in my pocket and my wallet in my pocket. And I don't close that car door until I feel those. So it's stop, feel, and then go. Mm-hmm. So that's a trick. I mean, you can also use that when you're about to enter into a website, like a shopping website. When you're about to enter it, you pause and you go, okay, should I be here? Am I about to buy another motorcycle that I don't need? Or whatever.
Well, I didn't even ask you about that. You like doing high-speed racing.
Yes, I like road racing.
Just tell us really quickly a little bit about that.
Well, this is a kind of a classic ADHD sport. I mean, you're road racing on a closed racetrack. It's not like a Nassau oval. It's more like it varies. It's kind of a squiggly pattern that goes around and around. But you're on a machine that has 160, 170 horsepower, and it only weighs 350 pounds, so you can do 180 miles an hour.
Oh, my gosh.
And in the straightaways, I've done 170, 165. And I'll tell you, when you are... Talk about being present.
Yeah,
and you have to be present all around the racetrack, because even when you're only doing 110 and a 90, you're often in a turn with your knee dragging along the ground and the bike is leaned all the way over. And if you make one mistake, if you stab the brakes too much, or if you let off the gas, you are done. And I've got the hardware in my shoulder here. I've got a titanium plate and 7 screws to prove it. But it is a great way to refresh the mind, to fulfill that need for speed and the need for excitement or stimulation that I used to get from drugs and doing crime. Now I get it at a racetrack about every month. So it's
probably a bit healthier.
It is definitely healthier, even though it can result in broken bones and sometimes worse, but it's definitely healthier than being a drug addict.
I used to do a lot of mountain biking on some pretty kind of aggressive trails, and I loved it. My back can't really handle it anymore, because I can't just go, when I go out there, I can't go easy. And then I regret it. I'm like, I'm hurting for like weeks and icing my back.
Well, that's a classic ADHD pursuit.
I flew into a tree, actually. It was a week before I started my internship when I was in grad school. I was out on a wooded trail by myself, and I've always told myself, if I'm by myself, take it easy. And I remember having the thought even while I was doing it, and I wasn't listening to it. And I was going too fast, and I hit a root, and I got airborne, and it was like time slowed down as I'm going towards that tree, and I knew that I was going to hit it. And I thought I broke my ribs. I mean, it knocked the wind out of me. I laid there in the trail for, I don't even know how long it was, but I was okay, but my ribs were severely bruised.
And it's scary that you were alone, too.
Yes, that freaked me out.
But you said something really, really classic, too, which is, I told myself if I'm alone to take it easy. To go slow. But we can't. It's not fun for us. That's why, some motorcyclists are into being on a big Harley Davidson and cruising down the highway at 70 miles an hour for 3 hours. That's not for me. I can't do that. That is just would drive me nuts.
It'd be awesome if it was the first time you're on a motorcycle.
Yeah. But
I can see that
as a pastime, as a hobby, it doesn't have the same appeal for me. But it also reminds me of something that a young man who I've been coaching said. He's had issues with kind of being on the straight and narrow, and then getting into drugs, and then getting a job and keeping it, and then losing the job, and he said, the regular life just isn't any fun. So being on the straight and narrow, getting to your job every day, doing your job may not be as interesting, quote unquote, as going out and doing drugs with your friends or whatever. And it's a shame that people feel that way and they can't see the broader goal. But it's just, it's kind of an analogy to, I can't go slow. I can't drive 55.
I would if I could.
I would if I could, but it's just my brain, as Hallowell was just saying, I've got a Ferrari brain. We all have Ferrari brains. Right. It's just that we have bicycle brakes, and we have to learn how to control both of them.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate you sitting down with me.
Thanks for having me on. It's a great conversation as always, and it's really a pleasure to see you here.
Thanks a lot. Well, ADHD Rewired listeners, you have just listened to another episode of ADHD Rewired. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. We got a lot of productivity tips, and I just think this episode was fantastic. So, Alan Brown, thank you very much. You crushed it. Make sure you click the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. Next week, you will hear my conversation with Kirsten Milliken of Play ADHD. We talk about the importance of adding play to our lives as adults with ADHD. If you want to support the show, please head over to iTunes or Stitcher and leave an honest rating and review. This is one of the best ways you can make a difference in the lives of others by making ADHD Rewired appear at the top of iTunes. You can also follow and share ADHD Rewired on SoundCloud. I really would like to encourage you to not just be a passive listener, but become an active member of our growing online community. Like us on Facebook, but get involved in the community. You can request to be a member of our online community, and I will respond to most requests in 1 to 2 days. Thank you for everyone who registered for the ADHD Rewired Coaching and Accountability Group. We are completely full, but email me if you are interested in joining this group the next time I offer it. Go to ADHDrewired.com to sign up for my email newsletter or text TIVERS, TIVERS, to the number 22828 and get notifications of any official announcements. Again, thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to sharing with you the next 25 episodes of ADHD Rewired. So I asked Alan, are there any ADD Crusher videos that you're really excited about but haven't been released yet?
Alan Brown's feel-good video on how to drop a really beautiful F-bomb.
Until next time.